everybody, welcome to the Super Combo Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything related to the Dragon Ball TCG. I'm your host, Espira, and today I'm running solo. I want to apologize for missing an episode last week. I decided to take some time to try and spruce up the audio quality of the show, as well as I have some preparations in the background for more content, specifically to be placed into YouTube. When I can, I'll send out some posts and let you guys know what's going on with that. So, first thing we're going to get into today is the Charlotte celebrations. This is going to be one of the first looks as to what we can expect with the Set 6 meta. And then, after looking at the celebrations, we will be talking about the Multicolor block that Bandai has decided to announce just last week, and where I think that's going to impact. And I think it has huge implications on the game moving forward. So, first thing we're going to look into is the Charlotte celebrations. As I mentioned previously, this is going to be the first set with Set 6. And what we see is that Vanilla Goku performed really well. So for those of you who don't know, Vanilla Goku is the new Black Goku leader that effectively has a lot of synergies with skill-less cards that simply have a cost, a combo power, and battle power. So effectively, you can combo your vanillas, and once a turn, I believe, they become a 10k combo. Additionally, you have the one-drop Goku that will search the 4-star ball out of your deck, which is a zero-cost ball that activates during battle and gives 5k or 10k if it's a vanilla card that it's targeting. As well as for 2, you get to search out your deck for any vanilla card that costs 3 or less and play it on the battlefield. Now that's huge because anytime you can cheat on energy in a game is when you have the potential to do something really broken. And usually what we've seen with top decks are the ones that can either be super energy efficient, such as with Storm in the past, or that can break energy or break the balance between the costs of playing things and managing your resources. So that's kind of like in the realm of Super Saiyan 3. And vanillas are huge. We're talking like 30k beaters. And yeah, by themselves they're not great, but we also have to remember that there are tons of cards that are out there that can give them more versatility. Like there's the Champas and the Kais that give them double strike, which is huge. And being able to have those big bodies there is tough to deal with. Something I noticed when I was playing Sealed for Set 6 during the pre-release events was that it's not always super obvious to get rid of big, beefy 30k beaters. You don't want to waste your turn attacking into them because effectively they don't quote unquote do anything. But at the same time, if you don't deal with them, they can very quickly and efficiently beat you down. This combos really well with the Android 8 battle card where I believe it searches a vanilla, which is, it's a nice card. But at the same time, it has a second auto where if a Goku childhood leaves the battlefield, you may KO a card from your opponent. And this has huge ramifications because the current ruling state, if you are comboing a Goku out of the battlefield, that counts as removing a Goku. Thus, you can proc off and destroy any of your opponent's cards. And I think that versatility, basically a Shugesh on a stick, really sets the deck as being a huge contender. One of the players who topped with Yellow Goku, let's see here, Isaiah Herring, he himself was stating that the big viability of the deck is the fact that you can actually do this 2-card combo of being able to proc off a bunch of kills out of the combo step. We've seen it time and time again with Explosive Shugesh, how powerful and game-breaking that can be. And I think the deck having that as an option, as something that you want to do anyways, in addition to being some great tech against some decks, is fantastic. So, to give an overall breakdown, like I said, we have the Vanilla Goku, which was the big breakout deck of Set 6. So additionally, we have a Slug deck in the top 16. A lot of people have been predicting that Slug will get better, and that's not that surprising. He got a good suite of support going into Set 6. Being able to just drop in for cheaply a bunch of hand destruction and being able to more seamlessly get out Bond without having a bunch of janky battle cards to get there. And finally, we have a single Super Dragon Ball deck. Now, if you were hoping that the deck was some spicy, 8-card combo that can only be done in 2 turns, so using Shenron to get the extra turn, that's not the case. Danny ended up making a very efficient aggro deck with it, using mostly the 1-2 swap engine and Bulmas to constantly feed the drop. So you would feed the drop, get in your 1-2 swap beats, and then you would overwhelm, so we're talking Scientist Fu here, to be able to keep the card advantage, swing in, and then typically turn 2, 3, you take an extra turn, and then you just do it all over again. And that can be absolutely backbreaking. Right now, I think we're still new to the meta. I'm sure there's going to be ways to combat that we haven't really looked into just because the meta hasn't settled yet. But I can definitely see this being very dangerous. And I've been saying this a lot ever since Shenron got announced, that it's a card that only gets better as more cards get released. Because the more we look into engines that might need an extra turn to set up, or the more efficient decks become at ripping through their deck and being able to put pressure at the opponent, the better Shenron becomes. Because all of a sudden you just get an extra turn to do it all over again. Because the best engines don't need the leader to function. 1-2 swap functioned with number of leaders, whether we're talking Hirudegarn, Trunks, some people have tried Gogeta, and that's just because it stands on its own legs. So when you put that kind of efficiency onto a leader that can only propagate that even more by giving you a whole extra turn, a whole extra energy to be able to plow through, is very powerful and something to definitely watch out for. So rounding out a summary of what the entire top 16 looked like, we had 4 vanilla Gokus, 3 starter Brolys, 2 Gogeta BRs, 2 yellow Brolys, 2 Janembas, a Lord Slug, 1 Super Dragon Balls, and 1 Pan deck. So overall, a really diverse meta, and that's to be expected with the new set. People want to try new things. I had mentioned the green Broly when I was talking about the new leaders at top, but placed very well. And the thing with green Broly is that he just makes combat really awkward. You have to sequence your turn in a specific kind of way that either hopefully he's breaking and he doesn't have the pieces to evolve into when you KO his lower drop Brolys, or you have to sequence a number of targeted removal so that you can actually punch through with the battle card you're trying to win the game with. It causes for very awkward combat phases. And that's one of those things to consider when playing against a deck. Granted, it's a very fine line, because if the Broly player isn't careful, he can either starve himself of battle space position. So for those of you who don't know, the Awakened side of Broly only allows you to play 2 battle cards. The moment you have 2 battle cards, you can't play an additional one. So either they're going to lock themselves out of being able to push further if the opponent knows what they're doing, or oftentimes the Broly player will just kill themselves. It's very similar to Yellow Broly in the sense that if you don't manage your life efficiently and you're just trying to go too hard into the play, you could get really easily reverse sweeped by just committing too hard. So it's one of those decks where you will get heavily rewarded for being a good player and knowing when to go through the different phases of the chain. And it's one of those where if you're comfortable with slowing down the pace of game and trying to sequence turns in a way that you can actually get your kill off, it's not going to be too bad to combat against. Overall, I think it's a really diverse meta. I think we're in a really good place in the game right now. It's kind of throwing back to what I was saying in the previous episode, where if you know how to answer something, your deck most likely has a shot. Like Eggman was saying, we have enough cards now that have answers and aren't completely color restricted, that it's just really, did you build your deck with the meta in mind? And if you did, seeing your answers will give you a viable shot at actually beating it. One of my mistakes when playing in the Montreal Celebrations is I had totally put Janemba on my back burner. And so when I was running Vegeta Baby, I didn't really have the build to try and push through all the negates and super combos that they had. And that's on me, because I believe that if you tune Baby enough, there definitely is room for you to be able to aggro Janemba to the point where it can't keep up. So that sort of metagaming, that sort of paying attention to what people are playing and what answers you be packing in, really shows a sign of a healthy meta and shows that you can play what you want to play. And naturally, there's going to be top contenders. There's going to be top decks that win more often. But I don't think we're in a place right now where if you want to try something, you're going to be completely swatted out of the meta because it can't keep up. So that's where we're at with the celebration event. We have one more coming up. I'm not too sure what city it is, but it's Chicago. So it is Celebration Chicago coming up. I know a lot of these Stage 0 guys are going to be there, so shout out to them and good luck in the events going forward. And that's going to be the last celebration event of the month, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to. As great as the celebration events have been, good job on Bandai for putting them together. Granted, we had some hiccups in terms of registration and the number of rounds, but overall, I think they've been a very successful event for trying to promote the game. And overall, I think people were very content with the support that Bandai is trying to provide to the game moving forward. However, I am looking forward of us moving past celebration season and going into more strict tournaments, into regionals and leading up to nationals. That's where I think we're really going to see the meta shape up, just due to the more strict nature of these tournaments. The celebration events were great, but the one in Montreal was only 4 rounds. I believe the ones in the States were 6 rounds, and that leaves a lot of room for variance because you're left with a lot of people who are X1, X2, that very likely would have talked if the tournament actually stretched out to the amounts of rounds that was necessary for it. However, we did not see that at these celebration events. And so we see a lot of weird things, like how we saw the Chilled and the Golden Frieza, and nothing to take away from those players, but a lot of variance takes play when you have a third of the players in contention for top just because of breakers. So I'm really looking forward to the regional season so that we can see what decks really come out of it, because that's when people are going to be tuning decks. They're going to be taking inspiration from the decks we've seen previously. So we're going to be seeing maybe Dende, Super Shenron, Slugs, and we're really going to see what performs. And as a competitive player myself, I'm really looking forward to being able to pick a deck and practice it. With us being currently in set 6, like I've been bringing a lot of different decks over to locals, and even when I was at the celebrations event, I had never played Baby beforehand, and it's been a lot of fun. But I really like fine-tuning a deck and trying to attack the meta, which is why at one point when Hercule came out, I decided to play Universe 7 Frieza, because I'm like, they can't beat Awakened Power. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking forward to moving past these celebration events. And I think set 6 gave us good options for that. I think Vanilla Goku moving forward is going to keep wrecking house. It was definitely one of the top decks we thought were going to come out of this. Starter Broly, also really strong. I think the versatility of when you can kill your opponent's cards with your Brolys and the way that it chains into itself, very powerful. And Super Dragon Ball's a little suspect, but at the end of the day, very, very scary. We just have to make sure to keep an eye on it, because an extra turn in any card game, always dangerous, because that's an entire turn of extra resources, an entire turn of your opponent having to be on the back foot. We already know how monstrous going first is. First is a huge advantage because you're able to be on more energy and be able to make more plays before your opponent can. And having an extra turn, especially in a card game where you can get that off turn 2/3, is very, very powerful. And it's definitely going to be something to look out for, because just like any other Shenron deck, you can slap 50 cards together, make 7 of them Dragon Balls, and you have a deck. It will be able to do something. It doesn't have the any card can be a finisher power that regular Shenron has, but an extra turn does a lot of things, and I think we just need to be really aware of that. So, moving on to the next topic, which is the multicolor block. So last week, Bandai announced its multicolor block will be the next block of cards we see coming. So blocks, for those of you who are unsure, are the sets of cards that share many mechanics. So we had the Overwhelm block, which brought in black cards and Overwhelm cards and had a huge focus on what those could do. And we are currently in the Miraculous Revival block. So that's a focus in on the Wish Leaders, the Dragon Balls, Sparking, and Burst. And now we're moving into multicolor. And we saw this coming a decent amount of time before the announcement. Specifically, we have a Gogeta where its text says, if your Gogeta is a red leader and only a red leader, And up until this point, we had never seen a card say that, because at that time, if your leader is blue, was more than sufficient to be able to, define that ruling. And then we got the Destruction Rare Vegeta, who is a red card that requires a red leader, but has an activated ability that costs 1 in a blue. And that's really weird. Once again, we had never seen that before. And that's just them preparing and indicating to us that we were going to get a multicolor set. So I come from Magic. That's my coming to card games. And because of that, I'm really excited. Double colored cards are some of the most fun ways to build decks, and they have the most powerful things for you to build around. But it's a really fine line, especially when you're playing Dragon Ball, where any card is also doubles as energy, and that makes it really efficient. So outside of single color cards that are really powerful, we need to make sure, or Bandai needs to make sure, that these don't break the mold too much to overtake the entire game. Because I could easily see a world where if we have cards that are really strong and can be stand-ins for 2 color, per se yellow and blue, now my opponent's holding up either Cold Bloodlust, Dimension Magic, all within 1 energy, and I see almost no reason as to why you wouldn't run them. And what you never want in a card game is cards where you say, okay, well, my deck starts off with 30 cards, now I need 20 to fill them in, just because they're that powerful. And this doesn't only mean for battle cards, but for leaders as well. Because up until now, the game is very based around, if your leader is blue, Dimension Magic untaps 2 energy. If your leader is red, After Image gives minus 10k. So we have all these very powerful effects that are blocked behind color restrictions. And what I hope is that they keep that in mind when making these double colored cards, because double colored leaders will give insane amounts of versatility. And I have to imagine there would be some level of restriction to not make them totally broken. Sometimes they balance. We're looking at you, Bojack. And sometimes they really don't. Like Bardock, and Swap and everything due to that. So I'm really excited, but they have to have some type of restriction. Like in Magic, we are talking about things like when you play this land, lose 2 life. So maybe it could be Self-Awakening. Or, when you play this as an energy, it comes in rest mode, which would slow you down, and it'd be kind of that cost of being able to play that versatility. I think we need some type of restriction so that it's not just wild. Because otherwise, I'm calling it now, dual color cards will take over the game. There are way too many powerful cards locked behind color that if you splash them by using double color cards are very, very powerful. I myself would be looking forward to playing green. Green has fantastic engines and has fantastic power cards, but I just don't want to run a green deck. But there are so many mid-range decks where I could think I really want Anilaza in this. Or if any aggressive deck could just be able to play the Veggies engines for free. Because you know what? I'm going to play my red-green, and I'm going to play powerful red cards like Hit and all that kind of stuff, but not be slowed down by the fact that I need to be charging up green for the Kabbas. There are so many avenues you can take with that I'm very exciting. I look forward to it. But what if we end up with a situation where we get a blue-yellow leader who's a Frieza's army? So now you're rocking Cold Bloodlust, you're rocking Dimension Magic, and you could run Shugesh at the same time. This opens up super combos for any leader. So the new green one, the Paragus super combo, all of a sudden can be used by whatever splash color that leader might be. So very exciting, but I think they need to be extremely careful. Just because the potential for it's a very fine line. If watched correctly, this could be one of the greatest sets of all time. As we see with Magic, Ravnica, and all those dual color sets were really, really loved. Some of the best sets they ever came out with. And in Dragon Ball, I see this potential too. I am really excited seeing where they could take it. There is such a small range that they can play with where they can't make cards too strong that I'm just slightly worried. And I hope, I put trust in Bandai that they can balance these cards appropriately so that they're usable, because I don't want a whole set where nothing's usable because of restrictions. That's no fun. But if they're usable but not too broken so they invalidate all the sets we've had previously, I think we're in for a really good time. Granted, that's all speculation. I'm not entirely sure, but that's my hope for what's to come moving forward with the multicolor set. Now we'll move on to the deck of the week. And today's deck of the week is Isaiah Herring's Vanilla Son Goku. So this Son Goku is actually playing yellow as opposed to playing the typical blue that we saw with all the other decks. So in his version, Isaiah runs yellow, and that's primarily so that you can run Armor World Champion. Armor World Champion for the cost of 1 lets you draw 2 cards. Drawing cards is great, deck thinning is deck winning. With it, he runs a suite of 6 30k vanillas. So those are 3 double yellows, and they're just straight 30ks. As well as 1, 2, 3, what looks like 3 2-cost vanillas. So you want a vanilla card in your drop at some point, because with a vanilla in your drop, Son Goku awakens 6. And we're not talking a gimped out awaken where he's at 10k for a couple of turns like the androids. We're talking he's a 15k, he draws a card, he searches cards. It's really powerful. So Son Goku lets you search up the 4-star ball out of your deck or drop. So what you can do is that you get the 4-star ball and then you reveal the 4-star ball from your hand. And that's what allows you to draw cards. And as we've seen with leaders like the U7 Frieza leader and even the red Frieza leader, is that being able to draw without having to attack in is actually really powerful. Getting your options as early as possible in a turn so that you can know how to move forward is a great advantage. So with this, you could show the 4-star ball, awaken your Son Goku, show the 4-star ball, basically net 4 cards. And then the 4-star ball isn't dead, it combos and you can keep on fetching it. So it's effectively, for your vanillas, a free super combo that doesn't draw every turn. Very strong. He runs 3 E Supreme Kais. Double Strike is really good, especially when your beaters are 20 and 30k and they cost almost nothing to get out. It's actually a really big surprise, but he does not run Bad Ring, neither in the sideboard nor the main board. I think that would be one of your biggest reasons to want to play yellow. However, I can see the reasoning for not to, because you don't have a big cost to playing these 20 and 30k bodies. You're not going through a lot of hoops to be able to get these beaters out. What you're really just doing is playing the 1-drop and then accruing value turn after turn by paying 2 and being able to fetch your vanilla cards to go in and swing. So he's running 4 Fearless Assault Krillin, yellow Self-Awakening. It's really good in green with Son Gohan. It's really good in red with Trunks. And naturally, it's really good in yellow. You want to be able to get to 6, and that just gives you the option to do that. He's playing 2 Wishmaker Dendes, and that's just to be able to get out the 4-star balls from your deck even more efficiently. He's running 4 Bonds of Friendship Android 8. Like I had mentioned previously, that's the one where whenever a Goku you have leaves the field, you're able to KO one of your opponent's battle cards. He's running 4 of the Son Goku, the 1-drop, which allows you to, again, search your deck for a vanilla and play it, as well as search out for the 4-star ball. 4 Master Roshi's Strict Instructor, that's the black super combo that requires life. 2 Training Buddy Krillins. What Training Buddy Krillin does is he allows you to play a battle card, a vanilla battle card, similar to the 1-drop. So it just gives you more dig to be able to flood the board. 2 Dimension Support Trunks, which makes a lot of sense in this deck. You want to be able to search out your vanilla cards, it gives them crit, and it's just an extra attacker. These decks are very aggressive. They lean into flooding and swinging in, and that's a great option to be able to do that. Running 5 4-star balls, and Isaiah said that was the perfect number you want to have, and that's really where I think we're going to be seeing variations with the deck. In my personal opinion, with some playtesting and doing some theory crafting, I believe that you want to aim for 4 to 3. That gives you just enough to always be able to find it with your effects, outside of a very unlucky setting life set. So you'll be able to search them out and be able to recycle them efficiently. I don't think you need 5, but obviously he taught work for him. I'm not going to disagree with that. So he runs 3 Aetorades, which is a 1-cost Black Negate, lets you get a skillless card from your drop area and put it in your hand. And finally he runs 4 Power Bursts. Power Burst is a key negate in this deck, because not only does it activate off of sparking, which is absolutely necessary in the metagame these days, but it also lets you recur your 1-drops. So we're talking fetching back your Android 8, fetching back your Son Goku, and you need these on board. Having these on board is what allows you to basically cheat on energy. It's what allows you to give a lot of battle tricks in terms of, am I going to KO your card or not? And that kind of recycling really fits into the theme of the deck of being able to recycle your vanillas, recycle your 1-drops, and just being able to put that constant pressure. If your opponent commies you, you're not out of the water because the deck is so quick and efficient at being able to rebuild. Finally, because we're running a ton of black cards, we're running the SCR Demigra. Dark Overwhelm, swing in, steal 4 of your opponent's cards in their hand, and combo with them. Extremely powerful. In any deck that runs this much black, you should be running Demigra. He's a finisher. He's a huge body. He doesn't leave at the end if they can't deal with him. And then it puts the onus on the opponent to either kill you right there or do something about him, because he's just going to swing in and keep on wreaking havoc in your opponent's hand. Extremely powerful. If you have one and you're playing this kind of deck, you should 100% play it. Going on to the side deck, we're looking at 3 Flying Nimbuses, 2 Mercenary Taos. So that Mercenary Tao is the new black battle card that if your opponent forces you to discard, they themselves have to discard 3 cards for that card. Extremely powerful, has barrier, and is really what I think is going to be a nail to the coffin of any manifestation of discard heavy decks. Any deck that's looking to do that needs a way to deal with Tao, because otherwise you are just going to instantly lose that matchup the moment the card hits the board. We have some Tan Shinhans, the 4-drop black one that allows you to go cheap with it if your opponent's leader is red or blue. Haruharu's very similar to Tian Shinhan in that it's cheaper when you have an opponent who's yellow or green and has critical. 15k, very powerful. Dimension Banisher Fu, I think this card is seeing a resurgence specifically because we are seeing the Broly decks. So the green Broly, you want removal on the spot there to be able to push through. And what Banisher Fu allows for that is that you get a free way to do so. So in a world where they're sitting on the 6-drop and they're just waiting to evolve on the 8-drop, well, you can play your Banisher Fu, get rid of it, swing in, and then be able to combo away one of your Gokus to get rid of the 8-drop. Extremely powerful, and I think we're going to be seeing way more Banisher Fu moving forward just because of the resurgence of a need for cheap targeted removal. And then finally, we have 1 copy of the Black Mass Saiyan, the one that board wipes anything that costs 4 or less, I believe. And that's just a good tech against anything that you think might outswarm you. So, good card overall. The yellow version of the deck is actually the version I would probably run. And like I said previously, that's specifically because I would look into running things like Bad Ring. And being able to have Flying Nimbus is great against other aggro decks. And I think it gives you a wide range of options. Playing blue gives you Senzu Bean. And whereas I think Senzu Bean is really good in an aggressive deck and is probably the type of thing this deck is looking for, I believe that if you can manage your turns efficiently, being 1 turn slower makes up for having a sure thing kill with something like Bad Ring Laser. Also, having access to Crusher Ball is really strong. Yellow really has more efficient tools of dealing with the meta, and the tech cards I think span wider range than just Blue's overall suite of just powerful cards. Granted, I could see a world where maybe you're running a splash of both. Honestly, it's so versatile, just the fact that you can run. You're not even necessarily casting your vanillas, you're typically using the 1-drop to cheat them in, that I think you can really play around with how the deck is built. So lots of versatility in terms of what you could decide to run. And I think we will see that variation expand as we move forward with the meta. Because if you're running red, well, you can always tech in some hits, which happen to be in every red deck. Or if you're running green, you can run some great removal suites. And I think there's a lot of ways you can take it. As long as you have the 1-drop combo of Android 8 and the Son Goku, this deck can go anywhere. So I'm looking forward to what we do with this type of deck moving forward, because there's a lot of different avenues we can take. And I think that just about wraps it up for today. I'm looking forward to seeing what Bandai decides to release in terms of the multicolor cards. That's going to be my biggest thing to look forward to. Once again, shout out to the Stage Zero crew and all of you going over to Celebration Chicago. Good luck in your tournament and hope you do well. As usual, if you have any questions to ask for the show, then just tweet at me at Espira TV with the hashtag SuperComboMailbox and I'll be sure to get to it. I'll have the links and the descriptions of anything I discussed in the show notes and in the description of the video down below. See you guys on the next one. Ciao!